Hello, I'm Toycat, and almost all maps are informative, but some can be more depressing than others. Look up global fertility rates or freedom indexes, and you'll soon see what I mean. Even a map of global happiness, which should be a great thing, is really just a reminder that something bad might be happening in Ukraine, Afghanistan, or Zimbabwe. Do you know what those things might be? They sound real terrible, but the interesting thing is lots of maps are really useful to look at, even when they've got mixed messages, but sometimes you just want a map that makes you a little happy, which is why I went through the top 500 maps from all time on Reddit, and I've just shared with you the ones which made me smile a little bit, like this one right here. I have to admit, it is French, but it is an interesting one anyway. It's French expressions based on other nationalities. So after you translate to say to take a Scottish shower in French, is to say events or impressions that suddenly shift from positive to negative, or to say the English have landed is something you would say during a woman's period, because wow, the English have landed, we'd better watch out. I think it's incredibly interesting. Also, to slip away the English way is a little bit, honestly, you can see that like French people have kind of rude expressions for countries close by. To talk like a Spanish cow is not being at ease, or, indeed you can see there's a lot of things like a German quarrel, but then as you get further away to a Roman's job, that is something that is quite complimentary, or to be strong like a Turk is to be pumped and very strong, and I think this one is a really fun map of a reminder that we have lots of expressions based on nationalities, but other countries have their expressions based on us too. I heard a really fun one, for example, for the English have landed is what apparently French people say. I had to look into that to confirm it's true, and while looking into that, I found out that in Russia, there is a similar expression, which is to say, there are commies in the party house, and I just really enjoy the silly expressions that we have to describe simple things that happen all the time. Speaking of simple things that happen all the time, don't you hate it when you accidentally get rid of France? Man, this map made me smile a little bit. Isn't this great? Look, isn't Europe so much better once you get rid of that weird little hexagon that's chilling there? More seriously, I do feel like getting rid of France is a very admirable goal we can have as a society. However, if you're going to get rid of it, I think to be more realistic would be this one, Europe without France, except you've obviously got the landmass still. I think this is a really interesting splitting up of France between Spain, which gets the lion's share, Italy, which gets some of its old territories back, Switzerland grows a bit, and Belgium grows a bit, but the UK getting some mainland European territory would be a wild time. Imagine all of this, but it speaks English, and imagine this, but it's part of the Republic of Ireland. That, obviously there is the Celtic connection, but it's still a wild map of how Europe could be if we just decided to get rid of, imagine how much better all these countries could be off if we just got rid of France and then slowly split the spoils. This is exactly the sort of thinking that led to both of the world wars and all of the Polish partitions, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good thing, and it didn't make me smile. Speaking of things that make me smile, here is a map of countries that sent aid to Turkey and Syria during their recent earthquakes. This is I think this is one of those really cool maps because it not only shows lots of countries give aid, but also if you look really closely, you can see that actually, even though Greece and, maybe Cyprus too, and Turkey have these long-standing hatreds of each other. I have someone in my life who is Greek, and they have this, like, deep, problem with the, what's going on with, Turkey, and it's an interesting thing that goes both ways. They both hate each other and have all these disputes, but the moment something bad happens between either country, the other country is there to step in and be like, we got you, and I really love that. Like, sometimes you look at the world and you can see it through antagonistic lenses, and, countries that really despise each other, but ultimately, even though countries might have poor feelings about each other, countries might feel like slipping away an English way is a bad thing, which, funnily enough, we say the same thing about Irish. The Irish exit is to slip away the English way, maybe. Even though we have all these negative feelings about each other, ultimately, when it comes to a, big tragedy, even the most opposed countries will help each other out. Speaking of helping each other out, I think Turkey is an interesting, case on this map, because Turkey is split up into lots of different provinces, right? And you might not know that Turkey actually has provinces that come from so many languages. Obviously, Turkish is the big one. There's a lot of Greek ones, surprisingly, but then if you look across the country, you realize how diverse Turkey really is. So here are the Turkish provinces, and I don't have the Turkish provinces, and I had the Turkish provinces somewhere. So the Turkish provinces are all named various different things, but when you translate them to English, kind of like this French map, you get a lot of really interesting things. Like in the same way that if you translate, like if you look at a lot of English names, they don't make sense. Like, why is it that there's places called like Eatingham, or here's a ridiculous one. On the southeast of the UK, why is there a place called Sandwich? Can I find Sandwich? The Sandwich Bay. Is there a bay where lots of sandwiches are attacking? Is this town named after sandwiches? Funnily enough, sandwiches are named after this town. But like once you start to look at place names, it gets really, really silly, right? Or Bridge. This place is really, that's the best you could do for your place names. Looking up place names gets you really, silly sometimes. And so if you look at Turkish provinces, which have a lot of history to them, I think there's some really fun ones here. Like country, cycle, broken castle, that's your whole thing. Old city, child, had sea. They must have lost their sea at some point, huh? Famous, plenty of water. There's just some really enjoyable ones looking here. 1,000 lakes, I think that's one of the US states, Minnesota maybe. And then we've got city over here as well, but from a different language. Noah's City, castles. It's just really interesting to look through, to my opinion, that sometimes there are place transliterations that you don't ever really think about because you think of the place more than you think of the name. Speaking of thinking of places more than names, here is something fun. Google search results from 2004 to today. It's actually to about 2020, so maybe outdated data. And it's important to note that if you look at this, everywhere in the world where the people are predominantly white, they look up sun tanning, and everywhere in the world where people are predominantly not what you would traditionally call white, they look up skin whitening. This map made me smile, partially because it's a reminder that almost everyone wants what they don't have. Like, when it's an interesting thing in the world of cosmetics that people are really keen on having something that is rarer and not, very common. If you think about dyed hair colors and how ridiculous some of those can get, people want to stand out in a way, and people want to be the opposite of everything around them. However, an interesting thing about this map is if you look at Turkey, they are pretty much dead on in the middle here. You can sort of see that with South Africa too, but the whole world therefore wants to look like Turkey. If you are whiter than Turkey, you want to darken your skin till you're Turkish, and if you're darker than Turkey, you want to lighten your skin until you get Turkish. And isn't that beautiful? Maybe that's not what beautiful means. Speaking of beautiful, here's a map of red squirrels versus grey squirrels in the UK. This is often used as like a depressing map of like, oh no, the squirrels, the grey squirrels from North America invaded. And honestly, that's how I used to take this map. Like, oh man, I've never seen a red squirrel. Genuinely, my whole life, I just haven't seen one. However, interestingly enough, I decided to look at this map a little more. And if you look closely, you can see one, if you don't care about red versus grey squirrels, and you just think squirrels are cute, there are squirrels outside my house right now. It's adorable. In case you apparently they're grey squirrels looking at this map. But the interesting thing is looking at this is you might clearly look and say like, wow, there sure is more red than, or more grey than red now. But I look at this and I say, wow, look at all these areas that had no squirrels. There were none squirrels in all of the west of Ireland and the west of Wales and places like this. Now the entirety of the west of Wales has squirrels. If we go to 2010 even, look at that. The entire Welsh Peninsula is covered in squirrels. And so if you're squirrel neutral, this is a good map. And you might think like, but red squirrels are a heritage and like they're all going to go away apparently because grey squirrels outcompete red squirrels. They don't have the same, but this is a really interesting thing to me. Red squirrels get killed by grey squirrels basically because red squirrels hide away more food than grey, and greys just kind of steal the red's food while also giving them diseases from North America, while also, interestingly enough, not, having to watch out for the same predators. It's a really interesting thing, just like how it's interesting to look at like, this seems like a big deal, until you look at the map of Europe where you realize, actually, there's still too many red squirrels here. Maybe we should send grey squirrels all over Europe too, because Italy seems to be doing pretty well. Speaking of doing pretty well, here is a map of ISIS and what they wanted to capture by 2020. And this map made me smile. I think sometimes you can look at maps of projections and it can be real scary looking at it, but this was the projection that ISIS was sure they were going to take. They were going to finally retake the Spanish Peninsula, make it Andalus. They were going to retake southeastern Europe. All these traditional, like Muslim strongholds were going to be united under one ISIS state, or at least several ISIS states in closer union. However, how is ISIS going right now, huh? How are your plans going? I love to look at when someone has got some bad plans and those plans don't come through, I feel good about that, like, yeah, bad ISIS, you suck, get better. Speaking of getting better, something you might find fun is this. This is a map, so it's called Naitokainen. It is a lake in Finland that looks exactly like Finland. Look at the lake, look at Finland. I mean, it's missing some of the islands, there's just a big blob there, and I had to look this up because so many maps like this are kind of misleading, but I typed in Naitokainen, and interestingly enough, you'll find that if you go in, you'll find that on the map view, there it is. It's way smaller than you picture. Like, calling this a lake would be a little bit misleading. I think this is more of a pond, and also, can we look at this in 3D actually? Yeah, okay, no we can't, it's terrible. But the interesting thing about this, in my opinion, is the fact that it doesn't show up on regular map view, only on Google Earth, and this is because it's not a lake, it's a pond dug by a local farmer who really likes Finland. And the map made me smile, but I always have to fact check something like this and say, this is fun. I like that there's a map, there's a Finland inside of Finland, but also at the same time you have to say like, well, is a mini Finland inside of Finland that interesting if it was man-made to be that way. There are lots of mini things inside of other mini things. There, just to the southwest of Paris, there's a miniature Paris. What's it actually called? Like mini France. France miniature. Yeah, there's a mini France I saw in a YouTube video recently, and wow, is that the same thing? Yes, it is, except this one's even bigger, and you can go look around it. Is this the more interesting one? No, because they didn't cut off France all the way. Oh, I guess you can't cut off France all the way, technically, because it has to connect other countries. So this should be a mini Belgium, and this should be a mini Switzerland, and way over here should be a mini Turkey. This is a mini UK, although it looks like it's just a roundabout, so I see how the French feel about us. And anyway, speaking, you know, this, I'm just saying, you look at a map like this, and you realize real quick why the world would be happier when you look at this. Speaking of being happier, this is an interesting map, which is actually just, it's just doing the whole true size of thing, but replacing Mexico and Greenland. It's so intriguing to me how perfectly, or like, you know, they're not perfect, but how close these two countries can fit in each other's space. And two, you know, there's three great things that happen here. One is you get Mexico, you know, Mexico, I guess. You get absolute Mexico up there in the north, which is beautiful. Two, you know, America has this whole southern border problem. Wouldn't have a southern border problem with Greenland. 100% of the population could immigrate to the United States, and you still wouldn't have any, you know, it would be like 0.1% of like a month's intake right now. So it would be basically no problem. And then finally, the third biggest benefit is over here in Europe, we would finally get some decent Mexican food, because as you know, the proximity to a country seems to affect the quality of its food. And so if Mexico, or rather Mexico as it will now be known, if Mexico, if they can get over their extreme cold temperatures and the loss of 90% of their people, maybe they could start sending some food our way. Look how great this would be for everyone involved. There's another 16 seconds. I don't know what could possibly happen. Oh, yeah, they just... Oh, no, they're re-switching. No, don't do this to me. No, I was... Okay. Well, this is significantly worse. You know, do we need to send Greenland back? Also, yeah, this is a fun reminder about the Mercator projection. Greenland is only very big because it's very far north. I feel like I hear so many people... I hear all the time about the Mercator projection, so often that it's almost boring at this point. Like, yeah, we get it. There are different projections of the world. Which one do you prefer? I like looking at a big globe, don't get me wrong, it's wonderful, but I also think something's like a little bit off about this. Like, during the intro of these videos, sometimes I like spin the earth to show you how we're going to talk about the world and stuff, right? I think it's a lot of fun, but the interesting thing is, I feel like the world is just more compelling from the Mercator projection, because a flat map is what most people look at most of the time. Most people don't have a giant globe. Actually, I had a globe really close to me, but I don't anymore. But I do have some maps I can look around my world and see, and in the same way, I can look around. There's just something that feels more right about this, even though objectively it's more wrong, and it's only realistically most wrong for the furthest north countries and the furthest south countries. Like, is Mexico really that much smaller than you imagine? Is Africa really that much smaller than you imagine? It's still a ridiculously sized continent that goes from Morocco to South Africa. Speaking of going from Morocco to South Africa, we have this map showing you a straight line from India all the way to Alaska. And this is a fun map that I just, you know, the reason I was in Globe View to begin with, actually, was solely because I wanted to show you that this is true. There is a straight line that can take you from India to the United States of America. It seems kind of wacky, and honestly, it's not the fastest route that you would take, so what you actually have to do is, like, pin it all the way over there or so make a straight line there, and then continue the straight line until you hit Alaska. It's something that you can, in fact, do. Has anyone ever done it? 0 times, I would bet. However, I think this is a really fun example of, like, yeah, straight lines on a globe are the one big thing that are worth going for. And so, you know, the globe is so unintuitive that you might not even know that there is a straight line you can take from the United Kingdom to Turkey. You look at the world from a normal Mercator projection, and you think there's no way that can be done, Toycat, until you realize that on Cyprus, obviously these British-owned base areas, Dekelia and Akotri, with, by the way, a little right there. Oh, that's fun, huh? But yeah, there's a... There's a little in the British base area. So yeah, as you can see, you just gotta go from here. I guess really I should have said Israel. I think my whole point is ruined if I say Turkey. I guess you could go like all the way. Yeah, I guess you gotta go to Israel. You can't get to Turkey in a straight line, only to Israel. Wow, my whole point is ruined. I guess you could also go to Syria in a straight line. That's kind of interesting, huh? Have you ever wanted to go from the UK to Syria? If you can swim 173 miles and break a lot of international laws, then you might be able to do that. Speaking of breaking international laws, I think a really fun thing here is talking about McDonald's. Every time I mention McDonald's on this channel, someone doesn't know the Lord and Savior that is McDonald's here. And something really interesting is like the fact that so this is working out the annual salary across the whole world, and then 100 adult meals, a Big Mac, large fries, and a large Coca-Cola as a percentage of the country's median yearly income. So to show you the affordability of eating McDonald's, what is that, like 2 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week? If you were to do that in the UK, it would cost you 2.63% of your salary, while in Jordan it would be 18%, in Lebanon it'd be 74%, and one of the lowest on this maps, we have Taiwan at 1.68, or Liechtenstein at 0.77. You can eat McDonald's every day in Liechtenstein, 365 days a year, and still have 97% of your salary left over. What would you do with the other 97%? There are no other needs that you have in your life besides a large adult meal at McDonald's, and it's just ridiculous to me. Speaking of ridiculous to me, here is a map of rates of travel of the United States in 1857, and this map made me smile as like a wild reminder of how far we've come in, by the way, this is 150 years. This was, this is an early United States. This is like 10 to 12 presidents in. I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly how many. And it still would have taken from the capital over here, or even from New York, it would have taken 5 weeks to get to places that right now you can fly to in 5 hours. Getting to several parts of the country was just impractical, even by the fastest means. And that is a fun reminder to me that we are moving so far as a society in so many different great ways. Speaking of so many different great ways, I think I missed a great map over here, which is this. If the United States just built a couple of dams, they could have a territory that looked like this. Obviously, the couple of dams would have to be very big, but if they just spent like 80% of their military budget one year, they could have a Mexico, I guess, and they could have a lot more Canadian border, which is I'm sure everyone wants. Look at all this land that could be reclaimed from the ocean with just a couple of nice dams. Speaking of nice dams, this is a map of the world, which you might not realize, but it's actually removed. So again, this is a kind of stunning map to really appreciate. This is a map of the world with every country that starts with W removed. Yeah, I know, right? Anyway, speaking of things that are being removed, I would like to just do a quick little update. I know a lot of people are curious, like, where as someone who, like, talks about geography a lot, you might be curious where on the planet I visited, and I finally am getting back into the swing of being able to travel again. I spent the last few years, between COVID and having to go back and forth between the United States and back. It's been a very wild couple of years, but now I live in the UK again, and I am, I'm not living in the United States. My dreams failed, maybe you could say. But interestingly enough, that means that, yeah, looking at this, we have our map of 48 countries. It is going to go up, but also because of my McDonald's video coming out real soon on Andrew Andrews, by the way, because of my McDonald's trip, I have visited a new German state of the Saarland. So yeah, do you see the difference in the map? It's a very tiny German state, but yeah, I've been to the Saarland now, and I've also been to France's Grand Est region. I don't think I've done all the little I've gone to other places in France, actually. I think they separated it on the map since I last updated it. This is a public map you can check anytime you want to, by the way. So it's called Grand Est, and I've also been to, I haven't been to French Guiana, funnily enough, but I have been to, Normandy, definitely at some point, and then whatever the one in the southwest here is called, so Provence, Alpes, Côte d'Azur. Alpes, Côte d'Azur. I do not see Côte d'Azur, therefore it doesn't exist. There we go. So there we go. That is where I've been to in France, added to the map here. And yeah, technically, one of the fun things I've wanted to do forever is I've wanted to go to all of the continents. And so just, again, COVID got in the way of me going to Africa and South America that one year. But I'm either going to go to Morocco or South Africa and Argentina or Chile. So if you have fun opinions on those, and also you can tell me what's happening in Afghanistan or Zimbabwe. Clearly they're unhappy there. Could you give me like an explanation of what's happening there, as well as where you think I should go between Argentina and Chile, and indeed between South Africa and Morocco? I feel like in that case, it's just, do I want a 3-hour flight or a 12-hour flight? And in the case of these, it's, which one is more politically unstable? Which one will collapse under my weight while I get there? Or more realistically, where are the cheaper flights to? Anyway, speaking of cheaper flights, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you want to see more of these, then I don't know, you can subscribe, because you might, but you might not too. So, second channel, don't care. Goodbye.